I'm not convinced that what we're hearing from government is the truth.
And if that is their baby, and they doesn't want to mind their baby, I would help them to mind their baby.
Kenton, you gotta edit this piece.
I think it's a leap of faith for us to do what we're doing.
In 2018, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines banned the mining of sand on this Diamond Bay. Back then, the government said that the area was down to rock bottom and there was no more sand to be mined. But today, 5 years later, the government has given permission for a company to dredge 1.2 million cubic meters of sand from the seabed here on the southeast coast of St. Vincent and transporting it to Kingston, where it is deposited on the footprint of the modern port project. But some environmentalists as well as political activists say that this should not be done. They say that the government should allow the sand that is in the ocean to be brought back to shore to rebuild this beach where they banned the mining of sand 5 years ago. But the government has already given permission. This ship will remove 1.2 million cubic meters of material from the coast of southeast St. Vincent and deposit it in Kingston, where the modern port is being constructed.
This area is one of the most sensitive ecosystems in the entire St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And one of the reasons I say sensitive, that we have this very beach where we are. This is one of the turtle laying beaches for endangered turtles, the oxbill, the leatherback. Brighton is another one, Stubbs and Argyle. You know, those are the beaches in this area. We also have the Milligan Key Bird Sanctuary, which was designated in 1947 as a bird sanctuary and a reserve for migratory birds. Just in front of us is the Kingshill Forest Reserve. The Kingshill Forest Reserve is one of the oldest forest reserves in the world. It was where the first environmental law was created in St. Vincent.
We are dredging 750 meters from Milligan Cay. Right? Milligan Cay is also so happen to be within the flight path of the airport. If you go to Argyle, listen and see if you hear the dredge. And then listen and see if you hear the plane. And then make an assessment as to which one you think affected Milligan Cay, if any.
So you're saying there's no impact? There's no known impact?
Not from the dredging. No. With regards to Kingshill, we're dredging 750 meters from the shoreline. Right? So Kingshill is, based on where we start dredging, Kingshill is plus 750 meters even further away. Part of the research that led to that was included in the report about sand mining in Brighton and Diamond included impacts to the Kingshill, right? But we have to ask ourselves, why is it the removal of sand on that beach at that time could have resulted in an impact on a forest reserve such distance away, right? And it has to do, based on my understanding, with the change in the geography of the location. The removal of the dunes created a change in the wind pattern, and wind is critical for moisture transport and precipitation and so on. What we're doing with the dredging, we're not impacting the height of the waves. The dredging is impacting the wind. We're removing sand from the seabed, right? In a location that sand is not actively contributing to the beach building because it's outside of the zone. So that's our activity. So Mr. Simmons will have to know, and I trust that he do, and probably he can explain even further how he saw or how he linked the dredging in a scientific way to impacting the Kingshill.
Simmons notes the fact that the government itself banned sand mining on beaches in the area 5 years earlier.
And I saw some very interesting articles written by Eyewitness News about why government had to ban, sand mining in this area. And because the minister at the time said that, it was the exposure to climate change and so on. And then now you have, this, that you're dredging, you're stopping local people because there is no any sand here. Since 2018, sand was banned in this area. And if there's that you believe that in a very short time, in 3 years, you said that the sand would replenish. No, that is completely, unrealistic.
Simmons points to northeast St. Vincent, where the government plans to spend tens of millions more to battle the rising sea.
Because we can see here, you ban the sand mining on this beach. In 2017 when they start the discussion with Brighton, and then in 2018 here. But you can see there's only sand, We know sand, the formation of sand is a very slow process. So to believe that when you have sand, when there's an explosion of the volcano, the sand would travel all the way from the volcano to come down here, that is complete rubbish. Because if that was true, that there wouldn't be any need to build the wall in Georgetown, and there wouldn't be any need across Rabuka and Byra and those areas would have been fully intact. Being here would give you an indication. This is going into 5 years, and the place is just as what it was when they banned it. There was also a study in 2010 by USAID, and I was part of the discussion and so on, when they spoke about the slow rate of generation of sand. And that study told government, stop. But government didn't stop. We stressed it for another 8 years. So this is the reason why we are in this situation. One of the other sad things, that from, where the church is at Bayabu, the Anglican church at Bayabu, there is a sand bridge, or sand bank, that protects all these bays, all these communities. And that stretches right down to the back of the airport, over to Warwick, down to Stubbs. In Stubbs, the people in Stubbs call it Iron, and that sand bridge it comes down to Diamond, over to Brighton Bay, past to the back of Milligan Key, and then it goes right down to Salpon. You see where the rocks, they call it Big Reef, and it ends at Salpon. So that's the reason why, irrespective of how powerful this storm is, that the storm never comes in and affect these communities because of that sandbank. The sandbank would act as a breaker. It would hit the sandbank, the waves. Sometimes if you stand up to the community and you look up, you see it would shoot in the air and it would just die down and it would come forward gently. What is happening? That these guys, I don't know what study, because you can't conduct any study if you don't have discussion with the community. I did some studies around these communities as part of my PhD, in terms of to study wave action, climate change, and we created a number of maps. Just last November, I did some work in Bayabu and Sandy Bay, and a large one in Kingston, where we train people how to develop these maps. And one of the important part of the maps, of the creation and understanding in terms of, and what make it scientific, is not taking out something and do some depth charge and pick up some information. That is not, without the people. So what we did, we had over 80 years of knowledge and a history, because we brought people who are in their 20s, 15 to 20s, and we brought people who are in their 80s. We bring them together. And then they would tell us, and some people even went, when we did the one in Georgetown, talk as much as what happened, what came down to the grapevine by their great-grandparents, what happened to when they had the volcanic eruption in 1902. So you need that level of data so as to make what you're doing, your decision, very robust. We went out to these communities the whole of last week in Stubbs, in Diamond, in Victoria Village, in Bayaboo, you know, trying to get a feel from people, because it was mainly collecting data. And people were saying that nobody ever come to talk to them. There wasn't any government official, there wasn't any of the officials who built in the port, that there wasn't any person. That's the reason why they were saying that it was a chala.
In Bayaboo, sports lovers enjoy the local football competition. But elsewhere in the community, an activist is trying to rouse residents' interest in the dredging south of their village.
My name is Theodore Tabit Matthews. I really take on social activities or social issues and political issues in the community. The issue is the dredging of the sand south of Argyle. It's a big issue, in my opinion, in that without any consultation whatsoever, the government proceed to dredge sand from Argyle, and that could create a very serious impact on our environment. Hence the reason I organized this meeting, because we have our fishermen right there at Shipping Bay, and they would be affected. Because from a little boy, I know when the fishermen go north and they doesn't catch fish, they would say we're going down to Argyle, and where they would sometimes catch their fish. And I see that as a detriment to our community and our constituents. And hence the reason the government should halt such activity and consult with the people, hear what the people have to say.
Do you get a sense that people are really concerned about this?
Well, I don't think much of the people have that awareness. It is for people like me and others who are that conscientious to take the message to the people. Hence the reason for this meeting, I organized this meeting here this evening.
What is the message that you intend to send?
The message really is to mobilize the people in our community so that we can do it with force to show the government that we are dissatisfied. We doesn't want the project, because even their own big project in Argyle, the airport, could be affected. And if that is their baby, and they doesn't want to mind their baby, I would help them to mind their baby by trying to stop that the dredging of the sand.
Do you think it's really practical that you could stop such a the dredging of the sand? It started already. It's expected to continue for the next 6 weeks or so.
Well, I agree with that, but then the government must know that from now on there need to be a consultative government. They said that. The government had said in 2001 that they are a consultative government, and there's no way we have seen that they are a consultative government. We have seen many things that they would have gone through this project. Take for instance that quarry in North Leeward. No consultation whatsoever. They come here at Argyle and it is the same thing. This government needs to learn, they need to take a telling from the people. They must consult with the people. They say they are consultative government, they should show that to us, that they are.
So I guess before all this area used to be covered in sand.
Well,
Okay.
all here used to be a pond.
A major concern is the impact of the dredging on the beaches. Douglas confirmed that the anticipated level of beach building in Diamond has not occurred since mining was banned there 5 years ago.
There has not been that level of accretion because the sand that contributed to that process, as I told you, that specific coastal dynamic process has already been exhausted, depleted, etc. So you now have a net observed accumulation on the Brighton Beach per se. One of the key things we've determined is that the sand that we're moving from 15 meters out, right, is outside of that coastal dynamic zone. And therefore that is not the sand that contributes to the beach building in Brighton and Diamond and so on. That's a separate deposit.
So
because for sand to get to the beach, there has to be a mechanism for it to get on shore. And the most efficient mechanism in most cases is the wave action. And for the wave to move the sand, to carry it to the beach, the sand will get caught up in it. That's why most of the beach building process occur within what is called the soft zone.
So put another way, even if that sand wasn't removed by dredging, most likely, and based on the current oceanography, it would not end up on the beach.
No.
That's what you're saying?
It would not end up on the beach under the normal circumstances. And even, let's get into the report, asking myself the questions. Even under the extreme circumstances, we managed to know that sand will not come ashore to deal with the processes that are concerned about ashore.
Right. How precisely do you know that?
Hold on. In order for us to rule out the most important, everybody concerned with the Argyle Airport. So in order for us to rule out the Argyle International Airport not being impacted from the dredging, a German university would have done a study of the area, right? They would have factored the wind patterns. Waves are generated by wind. Waves are required for the movement of certain sediments, etc. They would have studied, so they would have looked at the wind pattern. They would have again looked at the local bathymetry of the vicinity. They would have looked at technical information as it relates to the airport and its construction and what it should stand up to. Because the airport is not kind of infrastructure where a little wind wave should affect it. Right? They would have looked at critically the same report to understand what those coastal dynamic processes were that led to the issue of the sand mining in Diamond, right? All those oceanographic graphs and so on. And they then looked at what is the worst case given the dredging scheme, meaning the layout for the area that the contractor wanted to issue. What is the worst case scenario? And what is the outcome of those worst case scenarios? Under typical conditions, meaning like normal conditions, and also under extreme conditions. The extreme condition they modeled, right, was to use Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma was a 2017 Category 5. I think it was the first Category 5 hurricane to impact the Leeward Islands at that strength, causing damage up north. The extreme circumstance they used was to bring that storm over St. Vincent, right, and to see if without the dredging, Irma pass over that vicinity, what would be the impact on the airport? And if with the worst case of extraction within the dredging scheme, what that impact would have been. In other words, you want to see if after you implement the dredging scheme, after you remove the material, under the worst case situation, what the net impact will be. And the outcome of that extreme analysis is that the change in the wave heights. So remember the base height you're comparing it with now is if that storm, if that category 5 storm pass over the area without dredging, when you compare that generated wave height with the generated wave height for the worst case scenario, right, of the removal of the material, and they use different angles of attack on the shore. So I'll show you just now, yeah, some lines to show the different angle attack and all the points that data would have been used from. It shows that the difference is what we would say is insignificant. I could give you numbers, but the number is small. We're talking about 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter difference. That concludes basically that even after the removal of the material, right, that under a worst case storm scenario, right, that the impact on the wave heights are what we call insignificant. The wave height is what carries the wave energy, and it is the energy carried by the wave that would result in destruction of coastal infrastructure, including beaches. Now, if you get to the worst case scenario and you're seeing an insignificant response, it means that the area at which the dredging is occurring, right, is not contributing to a change in the coastal environment in a manner to create onshore destruction.
From the northeast of St. Vincent, we could see the destruction from Bronxtown, the park, from Byra up, right up until Sandy Bay. The lower part of Sandy Bay completely disappeared. I remember as a boy, we used to go to play football from Adams up to Sandy Bay and play cricket. There was a big park, all that disappeared. The same thing happened in Georgetown. I remember this big playing field and so on. And government had to pay millions of dollars to build a wall.
Now, where does the sand come from for those beaches in the vicinity? Earlier in the interview, I indicated that there's a process that brought the sand that we are concerned about to the location, which is it comes down along the east coast, northeast coast. It comes down on the currents. For beaches, the sand that contributes to beach building, accretion, the process, right? That sand typically is deposited within the shore, from the shore line to a point within the surf zone. Basically in the vicinity where you normally see a lot of the white water, right? So the sand which contributes to the beaches typically goes through that process of drift within that particular zone, contributing to that process. Now you get beach accretion if when the sand comes to shore, most of it stays and don't go back out.
So accretion is that process
building,
where the beach gets
yeah,
bigger.
Building, yeah. Right? And then you would observe beach erosion when the amount that comes in, a lot more of it goes out. And it's a cyclical process. One day you go to the beach white, so the next minute you see the rocks and so on. In Brighton in particular, there's a particular coastal dynamic in Brighton, for Brighton Beach, right? Where you have also sand dunes contributing to the beach process in that vicinity, right? Those sand dunes are an accumulation of sand, right? That has allowed for the growth of vegetation. And they saw when it was in its glory the unique process of protecting the coastal vicinity, and sand from there would contribute. Now, the government would have banned sand mining in that vicinity, right? Because the over-exploitation of those dunes allow for you to observe on the Brighton Beach erosion to the extent that it just did not make economic, environmental, modern sense to continue with that sort of exploitation. And that is separate and distinct from what we're dealing with. We could probably want to go back to the genesis of the public discourse on the matter of dredging.
That's what I was coming to.
Right? Where a respected individual, journalist, lawyer,
Mr. Jomo Thomas.
Right?
I recall the name.
Mr. Jomo Thomas. Break the news, so to speak. Right? And he took credit for breaking the news and the story.
As any journalist would.
As any journalist will. Right? But when you're doing serious professional development work, you don't respond to rumors immediately.
But it was not a rumor that the dredging was going to take place.
It was not a rumor that the dredging was under discussion. Right? The Honorable Prime Minister would have cleared the air, right, as to the status of the discussions at that time.
Well,
right?
I'm not meaning to draw you into discussion on this because
I don't mind.
You said the Prime Minister would have cleared the air.
Yeah.
What I would say is that the Prime Minister gave the government's version of it.
Yeah, but you see, Kenton, the debate is getting to a point where the government version of facts seem to have a larger discount.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the facts. I'm talking. Remember, we were talking about the debate.
Yeah.
So the journalist wrote the story, and the Prime Minister gave the government's version.
Yeah.
So I'm not assessing the facts as whose facts are correct or
right. But the point that we're talking about is information. And whether or not sufficient information might have been in the public domain.
From an engineering, marine biologist standpoint, I have no understanding or involvement of the project. But Kenton, you may recall that back in January, I got hold of a permit which granted Acorn the right to mine about 750 meters south of the Argyle International Airport. They were going to mine for sand. And we broke that story. I think I did it first on Boom and then I did it in a column. And I've written, I think, 2 or 3 columns since then. And my position was that instinctively I did not understand why the government would want to dredge so close to the Argyle International Airport. Because for me it was, the dredging was taking place very, very close to the most expensive infrastructural project in the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And a number of things that the company Acorn said did not sound right to me. For one, they said they were not going to suck up the fish because they are going to use sonar too. And based on the little I know, when I did a number of courses in environmental law in school, is that sonar has a negative impact on marine life. In that, at best, it disorients them, and at worst, it kills them. In fact, there's an international move to get either the silencing of the sonar or the removal of sonar generally from submarines because they either disorient or kill off marine life. So that was an issue for me. because our fisher folk ply their trade and make a living from that area of the country. So that was one issue. The next one, and by then I had contacted Dr. Andrew Simmons, who spoke about the what he termed very fragile ecosystem, marine ecosystem in that area. At Milligan Cay, with the birds, and he pointed to the lobsters and so on, the turtles also that he talked about that come in there. So that was another issue. And then what struck a big note for me is by the time the story broke, I learned that the company Aecon was going to have a meeting with fisher folk at California. I went to that meeting and listened very intently to the presentations that were done. And at the end of it, I learned that initially there was a plan to import the sand from Suriname, and now the sand was no longer going to be imported from Suriname. They were going to get the sand here. And based on very rudimentary understanding, I thought that the compaction of that area with sand, I don't know how much stone they're going to use, but certainly they're going to use a lot of sand. I thought that that's a lot of sand. And if they're going to fill in 16 acres, it means that of the $600 million that were earmarked for that project, a significant portion, I thought maybe 20%, maybe to buy and transport the sand. So let's put that at about 100 million, 80 to 100 million dollars. And then the first thing in the public domain, when the government was pushed on the back foot, there was talk that there was going to be about $1 million would come. And then that number slippery changed to $4.5 million. And then later on, well, by the time it got to $4.5 million, it was said that there was a lot of pushback from the government, and the government high officials said that they were not kulumunu, and that they wouldn't give away the resource of the country. And then subsequent to that, the Prime Minister announced that all was well, we have done all the studies, all of the studies have come out perfectly, and we are prepared to sell this 1.7 million meters of sand for 20 million. Now,
1.17.
1.17 million meters, yeah, for about 20 million. Now, if we agree that a significant portion of the 600 million is going to be for compaction, and a lot of that is sand, and the company had in its contract planned to bring the sand in from Suriname, so they had to buy it, they had to ship it, they had to hire the boat and so on. And the notion was that that would take about 6 months if they had to import it. If they're taking it from just off the coast, it's 6 weeks. I took that to mean that the company was making a tremendous windfall, because that was money it would have to expend to other companies to buy, import the sand. So why would we take even $20 million as it is now in a situation where the fragile nature of the environment for which we speak, the damage it could cause to our fisher folk, the damage it could cause to the marine life in that area, and the close proximity to the Argyle airport was a little troubling to me. So those were the initial issues that caused me to think that we were making a monumental mistake. Compounding all of that, Kenton, is the fact that in Ovia, in Sandy Bay, in Georgetown, we are doing a lot of sea defenses. We are doing river training, we are doing mitigation and adaptation. Our budget The Minister of Finance frequently makes the point that we are spending tens of millions of dollars in climate change adaptation and mitigation. So I was a little concerned as to why we were making the decision to do that at the time and where we were doing it, for the amount of money we were willing to take. The amount of money we were willing to take for it.
All of the new port facilities will be on reclaimed lands. We have to reclaim the equivalent of 16 acres of land.
Can you put that into perspective by maybe comparing it to like football fields? About how many football fields would that be?
A football field is... Kenton, you gotta edit this piece. Wait, let me get it, then ask the question. So a football field is between 1.32 and 1.76 acres. Yeah.
So it's about...
So 16
about
acres
16.
at the port. You could just call it 16 also football
fields.
Yeah. Plus or minus, you know. There's a substantial amount of land to be added to the capital. But the long and the short is, in order for the port project to proceed, the contractor had to find a source of fill. The contractor had to base his bid on something. But the question has always been, where is the best source of fill material that will meet the specifications of the project? Not a conception, but the project specifications.
And what are the specifications for the fill material?
The project specification to fill material technically asks for the 16 acres of land to be reclaimed using sand. Right? And there are other details of the specification in terms of what grain size, what the dry density should be, what the bulk density should be, you know, to what level of compaction it should get to. But we would lose the audience in the technicalities, right? So that has been the requirement, to have sand to fill the port footprint. You don't fill the footprint, you can't tear it up. You and I know as to how that debate went in the public with speculation and erroneous information as to what the initial source of material would be.
So tell us what the facts are.
Right. Let's address our mind. Let's address our mind to the fact. Like I said, the contractor had to base his bid on something, and the contractor would have based his bid in a frame identifying a foreign source, but at the same time indicated that local sources are being explored, and in this case with Akon, a local source, right, is identified, but it will require the necessary administrative approvals, permits, etc., and including studies, right? Now, Akon did their due diligence, right? They submitted their bid. The bid was scrutinized, it was passed. There's a public speculation as to the quantum and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with these issues, you don't have one engineer or two engineers. You have a team that working on the whole thing, right? So they have their team, we have our team of professionals in the government, in the unit, and so on. So we know how we're assessing what needs to be assessed. You understand? It so happened that the eventual settlement on the source of reclamation material, right, proposed by the contractor for consideration was that we can obtain the reclamation material that meets the specifications, right, of the southeast coast of St. Vincent and Grenadines.
Yes? The question I think that would come to people's mind is, how did this contractor, being a foreign contractor, come to this conclusion that this is the best source for them to get that material?
The contractor is an experienced contractor, right? It is not any secret that there is a deposit of sand on the seabed on the southeast coast to the extent that you have sand waves being formed in the precise vicinity where the contractor is currently dredging.
What is a sand wave?
Simple as that. Sand forming waves. Nothing complex about it. The source of this information is public, right? It's on the navigational charts used by all mariners. And because we talk, I'll show you after. The navigational chart used by all mariners for St. Vincent, I think the chart number is 0779, right? Shows that on the southeast coast, when you get from Warraku down to Argyle, down to Milliken Cay vicinity, the composition of the seabed in that area is sandy with sand waves. That's important, because that's public information. The contractor, being an experienced contractor, would know where and how to find that information, just as we know where and how to find it, right? Having made their proposal, the contractor had to prepare an environmental impact assessment. Because in my earlier comment, I said that the source, the marine source, will be subject to approvals. An environmental impact assessment was done. But I think the question that you asked is, how did they end up there precisely?
Yes.
Right. And I think the answer that you need is whether or not alternative local marine sources may have been considered. The answer to that is yes.
Douglas tells Eyewitness News that 5 sites were considered. They are Richmond in northwestern St. Vincent, Kingston Bay, the Southeast Coast Marine Park, the sea near the Beckwith Airport, and the seabed of Argyle.
Of these 5 alternative locations that were considered, right, the best location for what needs to be done was deemed to be Argyle. Because the contractor is going to use a dredge, you need a resource of a certain quantity. The quantity obviously has to be more than you want to fill the port in town. You want a resource which is homogeneous, meaning very consistent, because you have specifications you have to meet. The material also has to be suitable for the purpose, right? And from a technical perspective, the dredge must can operate in the vicinity the vessel must can operate in the vicinity where the material is to be extracted from.
In Richmond River, the material is poorly sorted volcanic sand. Douglas says the public often cites Richmond and notes the large deposit of material after the volcanic eruption of April 2021.
To the untrained eye, sand is sand. But when we speak in engineer field, sand is not sand. Sand is what means the sand that we talk about has to meet the specifications in terms of its grain size distribution, which then determine a lot of the other properties. And the most critical of the other properties is the fact that you need for it to be compacted to a certain density to allow for you to be able to build the heavy admin building and the garage and so on. But you would speculate, yes, the material in Richmond would have gone into the sea also, Kenton. One of the biggest problems you have with the leeward coast, when the material wash out, you move from 0 to non-feasible depths for dredging operation. And because of that rapid change in the shelf, you don't have a lot of the material don't get enough time to sort itself out.
The next option is Kingston Bay, but the material there is not uniformed and it is contaminated by glass, tires, and other foreign material that makes it unfit for the purpose. The third location is the South Coast Marine Park, which runs from around Milligan Cay to Cane Garden Point.
Now, how irresponsible would the government be, right, to allow, let's say, a contractor to go and remove sand from an established marine park? What's the problem with that material? That material is high in fines, right? High in shell and coral fragments. Same kind of things you want to avoid. But other than those sort of suitability comments, in no case other than agate, you had, right, a material thickness which exceeded over 3 meters within the deposit that you want to access. Because when you want to access the deposit has to be greater than the quantity that you need. In Argyle, where the dredging has been authorized, that site has been assessed to have over 10 million cubic meters of sand, which is homogeneous, which is tested and known to be fit for the reclamation purpose, right? Which is in, well, we already talk about the volume, which is in a quantity sufficient. And most technically, the seabed in that general area, where the dredging is occurring, is the outside of the 15-meter depth contour.
I think most of us speak in feet, so that's like 45 feet.
45 feet depth contour, right? That's where the dredging is being done, from 15 meters out to about, I think it's about 20, 25, maybe 26 meters. They can't go through it.
That was 75 feet.
Yeah? And the reason for those boundaries is that the vessel itself has a technical limit as to how deep it can extract the material from. So when you put all the factors together, Argyle was the best, most feasible, most voluminous, most homogeneous deposit.
I'm not convinced that what we're hearing from government is the truth.
But why?
Because there's a tendency of this government to play with the truth. We saw the problem down North Leeward when they refused from having an environment impact study. They used a study that was done for something else that was almost 12 years old. When this government talk about studies and so on, show us the evidence. I have a team of colleagues across the globe who are ready to look at the information. You know, give us the information, let us do the assessment. But I know it wouldn't happen. Because the thing is this, that, you know, you want to justify your action and you're playing on the ignorance of people. So that is the reason why I am doing this work in the community. For me, it's extremely easy.
Do you think
to stop this project? Yeah, you may ask me why.
How is that going to happen?
No. How is it going to happen? That project was funded through the CDB. That project was funded by British taxpayers, by the British and a number of agencies. These agencies, like any other agency, sign on to the Millennium Development Goal. So it's very easy. It's very easy.
But we must.
But
the British government, the CDB, and all of those, one would presume that they're not reckless and they would have done their due diligence. Yeah.
Well, we hope so. But and let me raise 2 points. When the company, because you know when you there's a job available or there's a project that you would apply, and you have to do all the studies and that type of thing to support your bid. You know, these companies submit project proposal based on they would bring in sand from outside of St. Vincent. So the project was approved. This Canadian company won because of their project, and they put aside an amount of money that the government of St. Vincent, with these loan funds, the project is close to 650 million. And there would be a sizable amount of money to bring the sand in by barge and so on. So for the government of St. Vincent now to change means that some forfeiting taking place. And what the government is doing is exposing themselves and the CDB and the various funders. Because if I submit my because it would cost millions of dollars to do the assessment for the proposal, that there may be a possibility of some of those agencies that submit, they can take the government to courts.
As the conversation went on, and particularly with the injection of Dr. Andrew Simmons, one of the points that, and he talks about, there are some natural defenses in that area which may be removed by the dredging. And that notion is questioned, and people may know much more than I know. So I can't dismiss those who question Dr. Simmons' assessment. What I can say though is, why is it that on the same Atlantic coast where we have erosions and the need for sea defenses in areas up north, why in this area, from all the way up to Goss, you have problems there. Why is it in this area, Bayaboo, Stubbs, Brighton, except for the years when a lot of sand was being removed from the Brighton beach? Why is it we don't have those same kind of areas, kind of difficulties? Or is it that there are difficulties but they have not yet been brought to the public domain? So when Dr. Simmons made the point that there may be natural barriers there, that resonated with me. In fact, I thought that was the most important outtake from what he said on that very extensive conversation with the people on Boom. But I don't know. Those are my concerns. So there's an economic concern, there's an environmental concern. And when I think about it, I think it's a leap of faith for us to do what we're doing, because I don't think that we can be sure. And some people may say that we can never be sure. But on the Atlantic coast, where there's clear evidence of environmental degradation, I think it's a monumental leap of faith for us to decide to do what we're doing. And consequently, I have been on this issue. I don't intend to let it go, but I am more than willing to listen to all of the people who are talking.
It is true that the dredge zone is physically placed in what can be perceived as a sensitive environment. Infrastructure sensitive, because you have to be certain that you don't impact the airport. It didn't make no sense you will take out material from the scene and then it impact the airport. The public debate is the government been spending so much money on sea defense, right? But it is easy to conflate issues to prove a point, especially if it's not based on facts and science. You understand? What are the facts of the location in between Argyle, Stubbs, Diamond? The facts are, one, right? The area is a uniform deposit of material. We spoke about sand material, sand, void of seagrass, coral, etc. I will tell you how we know that too. But we spoke of publicly available information showing that. I mentioned in a previous interview that was published of the Argyle International Airport ESIA, which coincidentally an excerpt from that ESIA has been published on your site today.
Yeah.
And that excerpt says,
In a commentary by someone.
in a commentary by someone, but on your platform, right? Keep in current with the thing in Kenton. Right? So that, and I get into what the government did. For everybody saying the government listened, the government did its due diligence. The necessary technical people and advice was sought and issued, and the best decision in the interest of country was made. So that survey helped us to conclusively say, without having to risk life and limb, right? But we consult with divers too, you know. We consult with divers They say we didn't consult. We consult with divers, we consult with boat captains, we consult with the fish. We took the fisher folk to site. Not our fishermen who we handpicked, you know, but fisher folk who were agreed. In terms of, we had some guys we were interested in taking because they were vocal and we wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity.
Are these guys from Calico or
South? Mostly guys from Calico, right? Because they use they say they use the vicinity. But Kenton, I suddenly searched these, they did not stitch together a compelling narrative about the issue.
For the fishers?
Yeah. Right? Because if we had to do what the fishermen say we should do, and we're not going to get into the argument of put it out there, we see for true, right? If we had to do what the fishermen say we should do,
what did they say you should do?
We would have been dredging closer to shore.
What did they say you should do?
You hear me say? We would have been dredging closer to shore, which would have been, that's what they say.
Okay, so a question.
Right? But I don't want to get into that because I don't want to knock anybody. But the long and the short is, the fishermen went to site. It was supervised. It was an interactive process. But the outcome of that exercise, if I take you to where you conduct your livelihood, you should know precisely. You understand? You should know that and say that with confidence, and it should also match up with the outcome of the scientific investigation. But the bathymetric survey clearly shows absence of coral, absence of seagrass, and also absence of rock shells in the specific area that dredging needs to be done.
Are these surveys publicly available? The results of these surveys, are they publicly available?
The results of the survey is available to the authorities that so require these things to make the decisions. Right? I told an influential individual today, I said, since when we've been mandated, right, to provide to critics information, right, that they themselves may not quite fully understand.
Well, I'm not talking about critics per se, I'm just talking about the public. Yeah? Jane public.
But it is being made available through our sources, which is your interview, Socialite interview.
But I'm hearing about them, I haven't seen them either.
No, to add the credibility. Yes, I went on my laptop.
Yeah,
let me show you.
Well,
no, but come on, Kenton. I know it's a provocative question. Right?
It's a journalist question.
Right? It's a journalistic question, which is admirable. Right? But we see the credibility. You ask me certain things and I consult in, not Google, I consult in documents as to whether the information is publicly available to John public. Right?
Jane public.
The information is available at the authorities that require the information for decision. If it is to be disseminated and issued and so on, that's a decision for the authorities to make as to what they make available. I can't get into that sort of.
Well, fair enough.
What I can tell you as a professional is what was done, what the results were, and we certainly see that the activity is going forward.
They thought that the boat was trawler, and they were asking, but we saw this trawler, what is this thing? So when we checked, you know, Jomo, Thomas and I, when we did some check earlier, we found out that there was some intention, and then after when we exposed it, that the government said, no, we are not going to approve. There's the planning, and there was some discussion in terms of the planning. Basically for me and for a number of people, the planning board is part of government. So to say that the planning, but we suspect that there was something in the matter besides the pistol.
Are you satisfied that your office did what it could have or should have done to inform the people? Or?
I think in any development process, right, one can be criticized about the extent of consultation. We got similar licks when we were dealing with the resettlement of Rose Place, you know, right? And this is in spite of having a lot of information on a regular basis from persons within the authorities, the Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, right? And even when on site talking about update on the project, where the contractor's personnel would speak about where the project is and where we're going. Some persons believe the port project only starts on the Tuesday when they see material pumping in Kingston. But I told you the tour of me. It's a year.
But could this be
of activity, right? Now, we consulted, there was a consultation meeting, everybody know, with the fisher folk of California. Right? Everybody know about that because that's pretty much, that was the intro, the baptism of fire of the issue of dredging. Right? The ESIA, which was done, the consultant that did it, did his consultation, right, with persons to obtain the necessary information for his work, right? We can't consult everybody, right? But key is that you have to consult the impacted stakeholders and the authorities that have influence over the decision. So we may not have consulted the person in shipping bay, but that doesn't discount the fact that we have consulted with the government authorities, the fisheries, physical planning.
I also spoke about public information,
You know,
like giving public information to the
Yeah, but-
communities.
there, even your site, Kenton, persons who pay attention to your site would know that significant information about the process of dredging and how the discourse was being evolved publicly. But you can't tell the government where and how and when to place information if you yourself is not willing, right, to consume information from various sources.
This is pitched as people who are opposed to development. I think there's a real danger when we do public policy discourse and debate like that, because the world, countries are replete with instances where lots of things are pitted as developmental, good for the country, only to come back and have a negative impact. So I think that we can have a conversation, sometimes a vigorous conversation, passionate conversation, without thinking that, oh, this person or that person has a political agenda. Every now and again I see people make the same charge of you, Kenton, based on what you might report. And the charge is legendary about, charge is now legendary about me having an axe to grind. And quite frankly, the comments that I make about public officials and about public policy are grounded in the view, as in my estimate, are best expressed by the brilliant American writer James Baldwin. Baldwin says, I am concerned about my country and my leaders, and I may criticize them, my country and my leaders, because they are all that I've got.
In Caliacor, on the lower southeast coast of St. Vincent, fishermen wrap up their day as the dredge continues to remove sand from the seabed further north. Most of the fishers decline to comment on the dredging, with one saying off camera that he has a lot to say about it. The fisherman tells Eyewitness News he would give his views, but asked that only his voice be recorded. However, he later says that he thought it best not to share his views with the media. The government has said that its studies show that there are only transient fishes in the dredging area. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves has said that his government will give money to fishers in Caliacor and Shipping Bay as compensation for any loss of income during the dredging period. What do you think can be done in the alternative? Do you think there's any other place in St. Vincent from which the government can mine the sand?
I thought that they would have taken because of the large deposit of sand from the volcano. I thought that they were going to take the sand from that area. There's another area, but I think government messed it up.
What area?
By turning that area, because what they where they build the housing scheme is a sand dune that is, you can see the height of it. So I think government.
You're talking about right there, right?
Yeah, right here. Government, there are two areas, one here and one on the other side of Brighton, going down to Brighton Salpon, where a private housing scheme was built on the other side of going into Brighton Salpon. Those are two massive sand dunes. And I think, so that would be an excellent alternative, because you can fish out enough sand from that area that can use that. But also the other area is Wabuka sand. But that was dismissed because the project said that they were going to bring sand into the country. So why the change? Why you change the goalposts after the project was approved? Do we know the amount of money that was set aside? I heard it was a big sum, millions, and then you're taking less than about 20% to dredge the same sand from St. Vincent. So this project is in no way would benefit the country, because you already put money aside. So to tell people that, we're going to get back this amount of money doesn't make any sense to me. The maths doesn't add up. There's something in the matter besides the pistol.
Why did they not source it from outside of St. Vincent?
Why did they not source it? Because St. Vincent has a feasible resource and Vincentian resource for Vincentian port, for Vincentian benefit.
But they're probably making a handsome profit of the fact that they don't have to import it.
Okay. That's an excellent question, because that's what everybody wants to know. The contractor come and run circles around the government. Right? That's the public speculation. People telling you, they're giving you estimates. They didn't see the video, but they're giving you estimates as to how much the contractor. They talk about, for example, the contractor representative may have made an unfortunate statement, or a statement that was misconstrued. Because for you to come and ask me my business is one thing, so the man reacted in a way and said, well, it's a company secret.
But this is a public project.
Yeah, it is a public project. But
funded by public funds.
I'm not going wrong the world to answer the question. Everyone is focused on the fact that the contractor was to bring the material from overseas. That is what has been touted. The location is erroneous. I think the public record would show what the actual location should
Which is what?
The actual location was closer to St. Vincent. It is not Suriname, it was Barbados. Mm-hmm. You know Barbados has sand.
Well, every Caribbean country has sand.
Right? Let me be serious. So, everyone is focused on, okay, they was to bring it from outside, so they're making savings. Let me take me through. If the contractor is to bring material from outside, he ain't gonna use no dredge. What you gonna do? You gotta buy the material from a source. He would most likely have to use a barge, right? He would have to use a tug to pull that barge to St. Vincent. Then he would have to have equipment to offload the material off the barge into the port to reclaim. The point there is, in addition to the source, there's a method. The contractor settled on, identified, right, and eventually got to settle on using a marine source in St. Vincent. In order to get that material from Argyle, you need a dredge, a trailing suction hopper dredge, right? A ship that some people ain't know existed until they see it. Talking about proper people, until they see it functioning in St. Vincent. This is a ship that allows you to extract the material from the source, take it up into what is called a hopper. So the trailing is the arm. The suction is the process of getting the material up into the hopper, and the total equipment, HAM 316, is the dredge vessel. two different methodologies. You should research to find out what is the cost of mobilizing a dredge as compared to the cost of mobilizing a towing barge.
Okay, so
and the point here is, the two methodologies came with two different costs. But that does not discount the fact that the contractor is getting the material locally, and the country is to be compensated adequately for the value of that resource. But it is not an equal transfer that if you said it costs X amount to bring it from overseas, is an automatic saving because you're getting it from somewhere.
There's one other point I want to make, which is troubling to me, is the way in which the government did a complete 180 on the point. When the story broke in January, by February, the Prime Minister was saying, no way, we're not going to do this. We have to get all of the environmental studies, we have to get this, we have to get that, we have to get the other. And then within about 60 days, he came with a completely different view. And it's rather reminiscent of his view on the COVID matter, where he had very strong views earlier, and then again made a 180 and became one of the most strident persons for the COVID vaccines in the region. So at the danger of conflating the issues, I just thought that those were two issues which I thought in recent times that he has gone from one extreme to the next in a very, very short period. So those are the issues that concern me, Kenton, and those are the ones that I want to be concerned about. But and I would hope that people will be concerned about.
Mr. Douglas, you and I probably would be around for longer than most of the people in the government. All things being equal.
Sure.
And I think all of us would agree, regardless of how we feel.
Yes.
Me as a journalist, you as an engineer,
yes.
that this is an important project.
It is.
For St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the future of our country.
Yes.
But the concerns, obviously, are about the impact that this could have on the environment. And this is why I'm here having this conversation with you, because I know people are concerned about what impact this could have on our country environmentally over the next 50 years.
And the facts of the science have shown, right? One, the dredging as is currently being executed in the location where it is being executed, when you devoid it of the passion, one, the livelihoods, right, of the individuals, the fisherfolk in particular, will not be impacted, but they will be compensated. The facts show, right, and the science show, the location where the dredging is occurring is a barren area, void of coral, seagrass, reefs that technically will form the habitats for marine. I'm not saying that no marine life pass through the area, you know, but it is not a thriving habitat location. If the dredge zone, right, was a thriving habitat location, right, we would have seen grass floating in Kingston because the dredge by now would have disturbed the seagrass, but there's no seagrass there. The facts also show that the investment of the government, of the Argyle International Airport, is safe from impact as a consequence of the dredging scheme which is currently being done. And the same how we concern about the airport, the people that had their houses along the coast, in Diamond, Stubbs, Brighton, their investment is also safe, right? Because the dredging scheme is not impacting the significant wave height in a manner to increase the wave energy to create the onshore type of coastal destruction. Right? The dredging scheme is also not making the area any more vulnerable. Right? than it ordinarily will be to extreme circumstances, right? So we're not exposing the lives of persons in the vicinity to any circumstance that will not otherwise ordinarily place course. Because the port remove material from Argyle diamond stocks does not all of a sudden mean that those persons living along the coast will become vulnerable. We move no sandbar that block off the sea. If the sea out there did block off, we would have sailed. Waves don't operate like how we might operate sometimes. And come in and say, I see a sandbar there, so let me jump up higher than I calm down myself. The energy which is being transmitted has to be dissipated somewhere. And it eventually gets dissipated on the coast. And what we are doing is not impacting is not increasing the dredge committee. Is not increasing, right, the wave energy, and therefore not causing the impact on the coast. And we did not end up in the location to remove the material or for just guesswork. Right? We spoke earlier about the alternative locations, about the factors that contribute to a feasible execution of a dredging scheme, right? And we discussed why different areas were not feasible based on those very factors.
Mr. Douglas, not meaning to personalize this, but we're in your office, and outside your office, your wife and son, they're waiting for you.
Yes.
In 30 years' time,
yes,
lifespan,
yes,
which of these two questions on this matter,
yes,
the impact on the environment, which of these two statements do you think your son would make to you?
Yes.
Would your son be saying to you, Daddy, what did you do?
Yes.
Or would your son be saying to you, Daddy, well done? Which do you think your son will be saying to you?
You want me to tell you what you just tell me now? Dada, let me dredge. Kenton, in all seriousness, I'm a family man. I'm glad you observed that, right? Mm-hmm. And I so happen to have this distinct privilege, right, of being able at such a young age, right?
Age 38.
At such a young age, I'm 37.
37.
Right? Mm-hmm. To be contributing meaningfully, visibly, right? And importantly, to the development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the land of the blessed, the one that we serve. Right? It's a privileged position. It comes with a lot of responsibility. Right? But as an engineer and a trained mind, you are assured that once you follow certain established methods of doing your analysis, of coming to a conclusion, of coming to a reasoning, which leads to a conclusion, right? You then know how to craft that to advise, right? I've been privileged to be in a position to contribute on advice with regards to the feasibility of the dredging scheme. I've always been confident that it is a feasible operation. I'm mindful. Dredging in general simply contributes to debate, right? But the technology on these things, right, are such to ensure, right, that even something what others may not be able to conceptualize and understand. That's why we have different fields, you know. I can understand the journalism like you, right? And I'm trying my best to convey the engineering to you and the issues as it relates to this. Once we were confident that we have exercised our professionalism, what I'm saying we, right? Not Lenski. We have been competent. We've exercised our professionalism. We have been competent that we've advised the government, right? And you see, leadership is a funny thing to look at. We had to say this one, right? And they asked me a question about my son. But leadership is a funny thing, you know. Sometimes persons hear of these issues and everybody talk about the dredging, which is okay. But when you're in positions of leadership, you have to make decisions also, not sometimes on singular issues. There may be a singular publicly debated point, right? But the issue sometimes has so many different layers to it that you have to look at all of those things together, right? Concomitant issues you have to look at. And those two have to be put in the mix of making the decisions, right? The government got it right on ensuring that the country wasn't listening, that the country is adequately compensated for its resources, right? And that the execution of the activity, the dredging in particular, is one, as you notice, it's exciting Vincent Chance. Make sure we capture that, Vincent Chance are excited, we could go out.
But I think
we could go out.
I think being excited about machinery is just a universal thing.
It's a universal thing, right? But know what I said? It is only now you're seeing the building of the port coming forward. But the long and short is now, to get to your question about where will we stand? What did you do or what did you help in doing? My son already proud of me now, right? And he will be proud of me, right? Because he himself is at an age that he can understand these things too. And he likes engineering. And he's motivated by the engineering that he sees, right? So it's going to serve a multiple purpose. Dada,
just for context, your son is a primary school child.
Dada, he's a grade 2.
Grade 2 student.
But he pulling a tape from the time he less than 1. Because his father is an engineer, Kenton. Right? But he will be proud of his father for the advice. He will look back at the coverage of this one, and he will also be motivated and I believe buoyed in his own life, right, to not be afraid to deal with issues which are critical and important, right, which may have a controversial tint to it. And I think that is what is happening. The dredging is critical and important for the movement of the port project, because it is on the material that is used to reclaim that the port is going to rise out of the sea in Kingston. And you're going to see the new infrastructure and so on. Right? We may not see the benefit now, right? But definitely the country cannot continue with the 2 ports that we currently have. So there's a question to be answered. Do we could get into that, but he will be proud. And I am confident that the government will be proud, and even the skeptical Vincent Chance, right, which is their right to, right, those who probe to ensure, because it's good to probe and ask questions and so on, and to try and get the information in a manner that you can digest it. Even they will look back and realize the government got it right on this issue.
The new port in Kingstown is being built at a cost of $650 million Eastern Caribbean dollars, and the baseline completion date is May 2025. The quay wall, buildings, and retaining structures are designed to last for 50 years, and ancillary facilities have a design life of between 15 to 25 years. By the end of the design life of the port, many of the voices questioning or defending the processes may not be around to see the full impact of its construction. And it is for this reason, and for the sake of future generations of Vincentians, that every effort should be made to get it right. Kenton Chance, Eyewitness News, Kingstown, St. Vincent.